What's up, everybody? You are listening to the Strength and Knowledge Podcast. I'm Dr. Zach Baker, physical therapist with Rehab to Perform, and today we have on a special guest with us, Sean Pastuch, owner of Active Life, and has a pretty interesting and extensive background that has got him to that position. And Sean, I'm not even going to try to do it justice. I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself and give a little bit of your backstory. But I'm excited to have you on today. I think there's a lot of similarities in regards to the roles and the experiences that you and I and our companies have gone through. And I think the people listening today are going to get a lot out of understanding the different career opportunities that are out there. The pretty interesting business model that you have created and have found success with. And honestly, just when I see how you interact with people online and how you promote what you do and who you are, it seems like you really enjoy doing that. And I think that's important for young listeners out there who are early in their career, who have this hustle mentality, that it's important to genuinely love and enjoy what you're doing, or you won't be able to do it for that long. So, Sean, I'll let you kind of introduce yourself, give a little bit of background of who you are and what you have done to get to where you are today.
I'll give the background that I think is relevant to the people who are going to be listening to this. And that is that I've been a personal trainer since 2005. I became a chiropractor in 2009 because I felt like the scope of the personal trainer was more limited than I wanted it to be. And when I became a chiropractor and started treating patients, what I found was that the scope of the chiropractor was fairly uninspiring to me also. Over the course of maybe 8 to 10 years of doing both, I developed a pretty cool reputation for being everybody's last resort. They wish they tried first. And people started flying out to see me for care. And when they flew out to see me for care, I would put them through a 3-day evaluation and then send them home with a plan that would update weekly. So I was basically writing individual program design for clients to take home with them to remedy whatever ache or pain they were dealing with without needing to go to another doctor or miss their active life, miss the gym in most of these people's cases. We're talking about CrossFit Games athletes, CrossFit Games champions, a professional baseball player, an Olympic medalist, and mostly regular people who were just at their wits' end. They couldn't get rid of the pain they had. They tried everything else. Nothing seemed to be working. What I found through the years of doing this with people online was that corrective exercise is a piece of the puzzle to help people overcome whatever they're struggling with. But frankly, it was the most replaceable piece by anybody else who was a good technician. You know, I think a lot of the people who flew out to see me, a good physical therapist could have and still could provide the same exercises that I was providing, or a different set of exercises that would accomplish the same thing for the same person. But what the people who came to see me and still do really need is to understand the why, to be met on a level that they are on, to be understood, and to be able to decide that what they're doing makes sense, so that just like the professional you just described, Zach, if you don't like it, you're not going to do it long term. And the clients I work with have to like what they're doing so that they can do it long term. And through the course of being able to do that for thousands of people, my company, Active Life, developed a reputation for developing the trainer, in many cases the physical therapist, who wants to do this for their clients where they are. And so that's what we've pivoted to as a company to do full time besides brick and mortars.
That's awesome. And it's a very cool evolution of a career. And I love how you highlighted when you're interacting with individuals, whether it's in a healthcare setting, whether it's in more of a fitness or a wellness setting, connecting the dots for them and giving them the why as to what they need to do and why they should be doing it is more important than any diagnostic test that you give them or any intervention that you recommend for them. Because if they don't understand why they're doing it, or they just don't really care and they can't relate to it, it's not going to get done. And I think patient care, client interaction, it's so much more about the ability to connect on an interpersonal level as it is just the X's and O's of patient care. And Sean, kind of piggybacking off of where you left off, you're with Active Life right now. You are training coaches, training trainers. What does a typical work week or schedule look like for you? Is it a traditional 9 to 5? Do you have people that are coming in on a daily basis for training? Is it more of like weekend long seminars? What does your work week look like, or your workflow?
I'd like to answer that. I'd also like, if it's okay, to give some color to what we were talking about before.
Absolutely.
About a client needing to understand. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love for the young PTs, trainers who are listening to this to think about this client coming to see you, or this patient coming to see you. An executive or a high-performing guy who has back pain that nobody else has been able to resolve. He comes to you, you put him through a thorough evaluation, and you identify all of the things that this guy needs, and you're very clear on what it's going to be. And you start providing him with the corrective exercises and with the protocols that he needs. But he's not making progress like you thought he would. If you go back to the beginning, and this is something that happened for me. I was failing a guy, an executive, and he came to me because I was the guy everyone said he had to come and see. I had to go back to the beginning and look at, why aren't these exercises working? And so I had a conversation with him about, take me through your day. What I came to recognize was he was sleeping about 4 hours per night. He was fueling himself on coffee to stay awake. He was working out about 2 hours a day because he wanted to keep his body looking a certain way. He had a very high stress job. He wasn't eating the healthiest diet, but it didn't matter. His aesthetics were lining up because of the volume of training he was doing. And he wasn't feeling complete at home. Now, I could say to that guy, you need to sleep more and reduce your stress if this is ever going to work.
Yeah, that goes well.
Exactly, right? But so the conversations I had to have with this guy, we ended up training for about 2 weeks, and the sessions were 15 minutes of exercise, 45 minutes of interview and education to understand, why do you think you continue to end up sleeping 4 hours per night, being stressed at home, not eating the best diet, needing to work out 2 hours a day, and spinning on this wheel? And we had to unpack all of the reasons why he found himself in that situation. And he made more progress in those 2 weeks than he made in all of the time before that, and probably all of the time after that, because he was almost all the way where he needed to go just by deciding to change his lifestyle through those conversations. And that only happens if you create the space for somebody to be more than just the musculoskeletal imbalances that we correct inside of a clinic or on a gym floor. Does that make sense, Zach?
I love that. And I think you had just hit on those musculoskeletal imbalances. I'm a big believer that we often express movement in a certain manner because of the environment that we're in or the other influential factors. And usually our mobility is not always as cut and dry as, I lack capsular fluidity, or I lack muscle flexibility. It's often some other things that are driving maybe some underlying tone, or just the ability or tolerance to express the actual movement abilities that we have. And I love that you highlight the fact of how interconnected all of that is, and allowing somebody to work through that with you, and not you dictating the terms of, this is what's wrong, this is what you need to do. It's, tell me, why are we getting this outcome? Why are you going to bed at 1 a.m? What are the things that are leading up to that that's preventing you from getting to bed at an earlier time? Whether that's organizational issues, whether that's stress related, whether you're just not simply tired enough to go to bed. And I think you really highlighted on the main theme of making somebody an active learner and an active participant within the process.
Absolutely. I want people thinking about what they're thinking about, and then coming to the decisions that they always had the ability to make, but needed the questions to do.
That is awesome. Now, getting kind of back into your active life, what does that all consist of? You had mentioned that you're coaching coaches. What does that model look like? What do you offer? How do you find yourself spending your days and your weeks?
Yep. So I have a really hard time describing to people what my job is, because it sounds so esoteric California nonsense. And what my job description is, the way it's written, is that my job description is to create a safe and inspiring work environment through which our staff and our clients can pursue a mutually shared mission. That's it. That's my job. The secondary position of my job is to be the megaphone for the company, to have conversations with people like you, so that the people who are listening to this who feel like maybe active life can help me solve my issues. Maybe I don't love the way that my practice is running or the way that my fitness business is running anymore. And instead of pivoting completely outside of this career to go get a cubicle job and sell insurance or become a real estate agent, maybe somebody else can just teach me a different way to do it. And it's active life. That's the secondary part of my job. So then the question becomes, what goes into doing my job successfully, and how do I know if I'm doing it successfully? First of all, I have very simple success criteria for myself. I have 4 kids who I love very much and a wife who I love very much. And my success criteria is that I'm home at 6 p.m. with my phone in another room or in a drawer, present with my wife and kids. In order for that to happen, a lot has to go right during the day. And in order for the day to go well, a lot has to be done to set the day up. I can't have to be thinking about a project that we're working on that's not making progress fast enough. I can't be taking calls from clients who are not getting the results that they want fast enough. I can't be putting out fires inside of the company on a regular basis. I'd be thinking about that all of the time. I can't be needing to respond to emails after hours or anything of this nature, right? And so my process to get there was creating a team that is excellent, where everybody on the team, every week we have a leadership meeting. And one of the things that we go over, the first thing that we go over is the people in the company. We have are they the right people criteria? And we want to know, do they have the skills to do the job? Do they want to do the job? And do they get it? And they have a red light, yellow light, green light for every person in every task necessary for their job to be successful. And every person knows what they have to do for them to be successful every day. When that's set up, everybody feels psychologically safe within the company. My job is to be checking in on a regular basis and making sure that that's still the case. Because if that's the case, we will be successful as a company, and I can pursue more of the megaphone than the process. So my day typically starts around 5 a.m. I'm getting up. I work out at 6. I'm home by 7:30, cooking breakfast for the family. I walk to my office after my kids have left for school, so I'm at work by 9:15 formally. And then I'm walking home by 5:30, 5:40 when we have dinner. And then I'm either taking my kids to their sports, or I'm playing sports myself, or I'm on a date with my wife. That's my day to day. From time to time, I'm traveling to events, which I cannot recommend highly enough to people who are listening to this. The people who are going to hold you up, the people who keep me in check, the people who I learn from the most, the people I want to be the most like, are the ones I meet when it's inconvenient for me to meet them. When I'm traveling to a place, spending money, becoming a white belt in the audience of somebody else's educational event, that's when I find the best people who I learn the most from.
I love that. And coming, or as myself, as a husband and a father of 3 kids, now 13 years into my professional career after graduating PT school, I don't think I can stress enough for anybody else listening how important it is. I don't even like saying boundaries, but just having expectations of when I'm at work, I have very dense, concentrated times at work. And if it's not dense and concentrated, then you're either ill-directed in what you should be doing, or you don't have enough purpose, or you're just poorly organized. And then when you are not at work, that allows you the time to have your full attention on whatever that may be, whether it's personal time for yourself, whether it's spending times with your spouse, spending time with your kids. And I love hearing that from somebody else who is kind of in a similar position to me. You're obviously more in the ownership role as opposed to more of the management role as myself. But that was a struggle for me. as we were growing R2P and as we were scaling things, being able to go home and leave work at work and being fully present with the family. And it's something that you need to prioritize. And if you do not do the things that you had mentioned of setting yourself up to be in success, it is an uphill battle where you feel like you're chasing your tail because you're either always putting out fires at work because you don't have great systems or processes at work, or you just are not committed enough when you're there because your head's in other spaces. And I love that you brought that up because that really, really resonates with me. Now, well, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yep.
There's a period where everybody is, the earlier you are in your career, the more you're going to feel, at least the more I felt like I had to work 18 hours a day and did. I did for years. That doesn't mean it was a poor thing for me to do. It doesn't mean it was a dumb thing for me to do or that I was just poorly managed. I mean, I was poorly managed. But what happens is through doing all of that work, you start to learn what's really important, what you're really good at, what you really like, and what you really should be looking for somebody else to help you with because you're not good at it or you don't like it. And there's a scarcity moment for every entrepreneur, I think, where we look at the money that we're making. It doesn't feel like enough. And hiring somebody with some of that money to do the jobs that we're not that good at or that we don't like feels like the wrong thing to do. It feels like I should be able to do all of this. But as soon as I made those hires and they were the right people, I started making more money in less time and having more fulfillment and time freedom. And it's a really hard decision to make when you're in that moment. But the most important conversations I had along the way were with my wife. Because once I got married, it was no longer me making decisions for me. It was me making decisions for us. And that wasn't fair. It had to be us making decisions for us. She knew who she married. She knew what I wanted out of life. And I wanted to make sure that she was included in how we got that together.
That is extremely important. And it just goes to show that you are really only as good as what your supporting cast is. And if you do not have that support at home or at work, you're not able to function on your own at a very high level because you're distracted or you just don't have that person propping you up, allowing you to operate at your fullest. Now, you've been a personal trainer, you've been a licensed chiropractor, you are currently a business owner. There are a lot of different fields and industries that you've had your hands in. And now when we look at healthcare, when we look at personal training, or when we look at owning a business, what have you found to be some of your biggest pet peeves within any of those fields or any of those industries? Or kind of another way to look at this, like what is something you found yourself potentially previously doing that you no longer do, or saw other people doing that you said, you know what, when I do things my way, I am never going to do it this way?
Zach, I didn't realize this was a 3-hour podcast.
Yeah, we can go all night.
Yeah. I'll give you some high points on that. Some of the things that bother me the most about the industry that I'm in are things I did in the past. And examples of those are thinking that I was able to and should help everybody. It doesn't matter if you're just trying to get off the couch for the first time or you want to make it to the Olympics. I can help you. All that tells me about you, if you're saying that, is that you're where I was when I was saying that, which is completely ignorant. You're great for somebody on that spectrum, not for everybody on that spectrum. That's one. Two is the fact that a lot of professionals in the fitness industry or the healthcare industry misunderstand the value that they bring to the marketplace and undercharge as a result. Or overpromise and underdeliver as a result for the feeling that they need to compensate. I'll give you some examples. Almost every single personal trainer I talk to, or cash PT, or PTA, or ATC, is undercharging because they put themselves in the seat of their patient or client, and they can't imagine paying what their patient or client would need to pay if they charge the appropriate rate for their services. And what ends up happening when they do that is they sacrifice on the service that they provide, get less of a result for their client or patient, and then feel stressed about having to get more clients and patients because they didn't make enough off of the last one that they worked with. When the true empathetic thing to do is to remove all of the compromises for the care that you're going to provide. Think of this person like they are a CEO of a Fortune 500 company who can afford any service that you're going to throw at them, and let them know this is what I believe it genuinely will take to get you where you want to go within your scope, and then leave it to them if they want to do that with you or not. And instead of getting that client for less money and delivering results that are substandard, just be honest about what it's going to take so that you can have the balance. I hate to use that word, but the balance in your career that affords you enough money in little enough time to enjoy the life that you're trying to create on the outside.
I really like that. And it is something that personally I kind of came to the realization to several years ago when I removed myself from 40 hours of patient care and started taking on more academic or administrative roles within the company. And it started to be that realization of I don't need to see every person who walks through the doors at R2P. And we see a wide variety of people here, ranging from high-level athletes to general population, post-operative, non-operative. And there's a lot of people on staff that can do the same things I can do. Mm-hmm. And it is not the best use of my time to be treating an Achilles tendinopathy that we have 60 other PTs that can do just as good, if not a better job than me. Yep. Now, there are some conditions that I do feel strongly is kind of my bread and butter, and that's my wheelhouse. And those are also the same conditions that I feel the most definitive speaking and acting on, where others may be a little bit more reserved. And I think that's kind of highlighting what you had said. If you know what your strengths are and you make yourself highly productive and highly marketable in that field, you don't feel guilty charging a certain rate or asking for certain things because you know and you can execute on what that is. And then you also find yourself showing up a little bit more amped up for those sessions. You're excited to see that person because it is your ideal customer. Because you're excited and you're well-skilled and you're well-prepared, you're probably going to get really good outcomes. And then that person is going to go tell everybody else who is also your ideal person about you. And then you're going to become busy. Now you can probably charge a little bit more because you have more demand than what you can offer. And like you said, it starts to organically snowball from there.
That's right. And there's a mindset that I like to offer to people who we coach who struggle with the idea of charging a price that they personally couldn't afford because they want to be able to offer their prices to everybody. They want to be able to offer their services to everybody. The mindset is, I would ask you to offer 10 times what you charged a patient who got amazing results from you. Offer them 10 times what they paid you and ask them, would they take 10x what they paid you to get their results, to go back to the day before they started working with you? And what you'll find is that people wouldn't take that money in exchange for the condition they were in before they started. And all that tells you is how much more what you're doing is actually worth than what you think it is. And there's one more pet peeve that I have that I would love to share with you because I imagine, I'm taking a shot in the dark here, but I imagine that you share it, Zach.
Let's hear it.
I lose my mind in a way that's not even healthy for me every time I see an Instagram reel that says, if you have pain here, do this. Because it totally lacks the context for how that person got that pain there and the potential negative outcomes that somebody gets as a result of doing whatever this is that could even make them worse than they are right now.
I wish at times the entrepreneur in me and the capitalist in me wishes I didn't have a conscience. And I could just go online and spew whatever I wanted to say that I knew would get clicks and I knew would get likes. But unfortunately, I care about people. I care about my staff. I care about my colleagues. I care about the people that I could potentially interact with. And I agree with you. It's very frustrating to see people in the industry doing things the right way, meaning they're speaking on things that they are educated on, they are speaking to a population that needs them, and they're genuinely interested in caring for that person. And I don't care if people make a lot of money doing that, because they check off all the boxes to me that say they're in it for the right reasons. And if they can make a lot of money doing it, that's great. It's very frustrating to see the people who are economically or financially successful because they found the shortcuts, or they found the loopholes, and they found the things that are attractive, and they sell on the algorithm. But you realize it's happening at the expense of a lot of people not getting what they need, or needing to jump through a lot of hoops to find the person that's actually going to be right for them, when that one stretch that was going to cure your knee pain in that 30-second video didn't work for you.
That's right.
Now, we've talked about a few things that are our pet peeves and our annoyances, and everybody's got them. You know, regardless of the industry, regardless of what your role is, there's always going to be things that you're just not thrilled about, and that's life, and you figure out how to deal with it. But I'm also a big believer of there are always some things going really, really well. Some things that we're directly contributing to, or some things that we're seeing other people in the space do that we're a big fan of. Now that you have been in the industry for a little bit, what are some trends that you're really excited about, or that you're really hopeful continue to happen?
That's a really hard question. And I think the one that comes to mind the most is that trainers are starting to realize that a great trainer or a great coach can and should do a lot more than get somebody a sweaty pump. And there is a huge space between the fitness industry and the healthcare industry that I believe, generally speaking, the players who are trying to get into it are getting into it the wrong way. But I believe that they're shining a light on something that has not been seen for decades. And I think a lot of people fall into that gap. It's the gap that I set Active Life up to serve when we started this company. But for such a long time, if you've ever seen the video, Zach, of the man who dances on the side of a hill at a concert and nobody is dancing with him, and then other people start getting up and dancing, and after a while, it's a mob dancing on the hill and everyone's having fun.
Yep.
I have felt like the man dancing on the hill alone for a really long time. And now I'm starting to see other people dancing on the hill that is the medical system and the fitness industry cannot help a large number of people, and we need to find a way to better help them. I battle with but they're helping them the wrong way. They're talking about it the wrong way. For example, Dr. Sean Mackey and Andrew Huberman, no, not Andrew Huberman, Dr. Peter Attia, Sean Mackey and Peter Attia had a podcast that was almost 3 hours long talking about the ailments of chronic pain and how to resolve it. I was hopeful that they would talk about the psychological elements of it, the social elements of it, and the physical elements of it, because Sean Mackey talks about that in other places, and Peter Attia wrote an article talking about what he learned from Sean Mackey about that. But the podcast was 2 hours and 50 minutes or so of pharmaceutical rep conversation. And so I battle I'm excited that people are starting to see this huge group of people whose problems lie just outside the scope, as far as I see it, of the medical system and the fitness industry, who have been told this is kind of the best it's going to get. You need to medicate. But I'm unsure how optimistic I am that the right focus is being put on them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think a big takeaway that I get from that is people are no longer settling for the status quo. And they're realizing for a very long time, different professions have been very siloed in regards to what their expectations are, what their roles are, what they're allowed to do, or what they should be doing. And I think we're starting to realize, whether you're a personal trainer, an athletic trainer, a physical therapist, a chiropractor, whatever your title might be, there are some very unique nuances that each profession brings. But there's a heck of a lot of overlap as well. And there's a heck of a lot of gray area that you can professionally work within, regardless of your role, as long as you do understand what your definitive non-negotiables are. But I do think we're getting more comfortable with dabbling in that gray area, and people are starting to realize, guess what? If you're really good at what you do, unless you have a name tag on with credentials, in my opinion, you shouldn't be able to guess, oh, this person's a chiropractor, or this person's a PT, or this person's a personal trainer. They're just an educated person who is genuinely interested in helping you and well-educated and very well knowledgeable on that. Now,
in an effort to agree with that in a really specific way, the only asterisk I would place on that is what you would go to that person for, why you would be there. We train trainers on how to do the highest level of coaching I think that exists in the marketplace. But we're not teaching post-surgical rehab for a reason. That's not their scope. And so I agree, somebody should be able to look at what's happening from the outside and say, I don't even know what that person has their degree in. Unless they're in a room and that person is taking their brace off to go through, those are the telltale signs to me. It's the idea of what's the context of how that treatment or that training is happening. That's the indicator, not the who is the person and what are they talking about.
Absolutely. I think there's always going to be some criteria in regards to who the first encounter should be with. But then once you're set up with the appropriate person, there's probably going to be a lot of overlap in regards to what is being done.
Yep.
Sean, as we wrap up here, we have a lot of young listeners that tune into this podcast. Either they are currently in PT school or chiropractic school or athletic training school, or they're maybe still an undergrad, or they are early in their health, medical, or fitness career. If you had to speak in generalities, what would be some advice that you would give to these younger listeners as they are entering or pursuing potentially a long and hopefully fulfilling career?
I remember when I came out of school, the day after graduation, I thought, I've made it. I'm done. I can now start seeing patients. And then I realized pretty quickly that graduating school is just the license to start. It's not the permission to be done. And I'm now almost 20 years post that day. And I go listen to and learn from people who've accomplished more than me and people who've accomplished less than me objectively in the business world and in the patient care world and the client care world. And my mentality when I do that has shifted from trying to be impressive to other people in the room to trying to find a reason to be impressed by everybody else in the room. And I get so much more out of it when my intention is to be impressed and to leave having learned something from everybody who I met. So my simple piece of advice for a young professional who's coming up in their career, in school or out, is aim to be the least impressive person in the room, in every room that you are in.
I love it. I've always said, if you find yourself being the most intelligent or in your terms, impressive person in the room, it's probably not a reflection of who you are, but who you choose to surround yourself with. And I think that's a phenomenal message to end on. Sean, for people who are listening that have enjoyed this, they want to stay in touch or just stay in the know with kind of what you're up to, what's the best way for people to follow along or potentially get in touch with you?
I would love for them to follow me on Instagram at Dr. Sean Pastuch. And if they're interested in what we do for professionals, I can either direct them there or they can go follow Active Life Professional on Instagram as well.
Awesome. Well, Sean, I appreciate the time. I know you're a busy guy, so thanks for squeezing this in. If you were listening and you enjoyed this episode, please share, like, and subscribe. You're listening to the Strength and Knowledge Podcast.